Hey, this is More Than Velocity. Today we don't have Bart Pear. This is Jordan Oseguera, and as always, we got Ryan Crotin with us as well. And we are doing another follow-up with Backyard Baseball. Awesome little facility going on there. I don't think they need to be introduced. And if you do need them introduced, go back and listen to their podcast anyways, because you should have already been doing that. But right now, I'll kind of let you guys take it away. We're going to go over some cool player data with one of your guys' players. So without hesitation, I'm going to pass it over to you guys.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks, Ryan. RC Orland here, co-founder of the lab. Like you said, been on here a couple times now. So if you have any questions, rewatch those. We wanted to bring in one of our case studies. Nolan Kruse came into us hurt. I'll let him tell his story more, but came in, I think, roughly around 74 from the outfield, banged up, saw a physical therapist, had some pain, and ultimately started working with us about this time last year, I think. And then worked his way up to 88 on a pull down. For those who don't recognize him, you'll see him all over Arm Care App's paid ads. So felt like he was the golden child for this. And also his arm scores 126, and pretty sure his total strength of 240 pounds has to be some type of record. So I'm going to hand the ball off to you and Nolan, Kyle, and dive on in.
Awesome. Thank you, RC. So this is Nolan Kruse right here beside me. Um, you know, I'll let him tell his story, but essentially we reached out to a travel team when we had first started, and we're kind of talking a lot about how we could develop their players over the off season. He was one of their players, and he came in, did the testing, found out that his arm was hurt a little bit, so a recommended time off. However, we continued with the Arm Care app and some dry rep drills, and then slowly worked him into a throwing program, where he went from 75 to 84 in a 2-month period. Then he played for a little while over the summer, came back for another month of work. We went from 84 to 88 miles an hour. So, I mean, and we credited pretty much all of it to the Arm Care app, to what y'all are doing, to the development as far as the range of motion, to the strength, to knowing exactly how strong the front of the shoulders versus the back of the shoulder. If you can't tell, he's a very strong guy, but it doesn't necessarily mean you want to just be strong on the inside of your shoulder or the back side of your shoulder. They have to be equal to an extent. So, Nolan, would you like to tell them about yourself?
I'm Nolan Kruse. Started my freshman year, I would have a lot of arm problems to start off with shoulder tendonitis. Healed that up. Then it went to elbow tendonitis, back to shoulder tendonitis. Just went through a bunch of rehab, physical therapy through my pretty much freshman, sophomore year. I was playing on my travel team, as Kyle said, and we started training with them. And he noticed that my pronator was very strained, and he was like, "We're going to take some time off, get that healed before we start getting into our plyo drills and all the trying to get that strength up." Took off, just did the bands, everything on the Arm Care app, and came back first day of just throwing, and I was up to 84 miles an hour. And then just went off to play high school, came back, and then I just kept on my Arm Care app every day, and kept up with the program. And then now I'm throwing 88 miles an hour. And then went off to college, and now I'm back trying to get some more mobility and throwing harder with everything.
So real quick, one thing I heard in there is there's a lot of consistency going on with the way you're training. There's a lot of diligence, and there's a lot of actionable things that you've done on your end. It's not just like you showed up, you took some magic pill and you got better. It took a lot of time. And by a lot of time, I mean, month after month after month of consistent, focused work leads to success. So I want to make sure that we're hammering that home, that it's not like you just rolled out of bed and all of a sudden, hey, I'm good to go. You had to put in a lot of time, right?
Yeah, correct. It's a very disciplined thing, I would say. You got to be able to do it every day. It's not a one day fix. You got to be able to keep it up and get that strength up. It's just like weight training. I used to weight train all the time, and it takes time to get stronger, and you have to be able to hone in on that and do it almost every day. And then we'll test about every week on your throwing arm, and to see where that's at through the week. If it's a lot down, we'll check out what's happening, what's wrong. If it's up, then hey, we're doing something right, and we got to keep that up. And then every month we'll do both arms, see how even you are, because your body loves being balanced, and you can't just focus on one side of your body, because then you become unbalanced, and that could possibly lead to injury.
So monthly bilateral to make sure you're moving in the right direction. And then correct me if I'm wrong, but weekly you were doing just check-ins weekly on the fresh exams, paying attention to those ebbs and flows, the ups and downs. You're going to have some down ones, but overall you're trending up.
Correct.
Using it exactly the way it's supposed to be used, which is awesome to hear. And we like to hear those success stories. Sorry, that's the end of my question. I just want to make sure I'm understanding right for the people listening to know, hey, consistency, you're going to get some success out of this.
So I just want to point out that, like, you know, when we first started this, I told RC, I was like, I know I am annoying this guy, right? Because I reached out to you like almost daily. I was like, okay, I don't understand this. Like, tell me how I'm supposed to use this exactly. Like, give me the detailed instructions. Like, what is the best approach to this? How are y'all using it? How can I get the most out of my guys? Because, like, our whole goal here is to develop players, right? Give them a long career, right? Like, whether it just be high school, whether it be high school and college, whether it be high school, college pros, whether it be high school to pros. Like, you know, our goal is to help you play for as long as you're physically able to and skill wise are able to, you know. So even if it ends up being men's league, if you just want to play and have fun and you don't want to have pain, right? Like, our whole goal is, like, how can we make sure our develops our players are healthy and we're able to develop them properly, you know. And you've been very detailed with that, with the instructions on how to use it. The videos help tremendously, especially guys that live. I mean, we have guys that come visit us from 2 hours away once a week, just so they can do that check-in because they don't have a dynamometer. Then we check their mechanics, make sure their drills are correct and they're throwing. They have the videos on the app, and that is a huge plus, let me tell you, because the worst thing, like, and this is the issue I had prior to this app is, oh, I didn't remember how to do the drills. Oh, I don't remember what this is, you know. And having those videos for every single exercise, every single stretch, the mobility ball stuff, you know, that is so key and important, because you have someone instructing you. I'm saying, I tell them, like, if you tell me you don't remember how to do it, I'm gonna call you a liar, because it's right there. It tells you how to do it step by step, right? And if I see you coming here and doing it wrong, or not holding your positions for 2 seconds on, like, the prep work, right, or the activation, if you're not doing the 6-second negative on your recovery, you know, it literally, there is specific details. It's all laid out for you right there. You know, all you have to do is take the time, listen, be diligent, right? It's a little bit tedious, but you know what? That tedious work makes gains happen quicker.
And with that, you started out, you said 74, 75. I'm taking notes here.
Yeah, that's correct.
So yeah, 74 is where you started. You get up to 88. And when you're saying that tedious work, there's a reason why you're getting those huge velocity gains. It's because you're doing the tedious work. Not everybody else is willing to do that stuff. And one of the things I always try to delineate when I have people call me and they're asking, well, how is this going to benefit me? Our system's not designed. Again, I always make fun of Honda Civics. I drive a Honda Civic, so it's fine. Our system's not designed to make Honda Civics. It's designed to make high-end race cars when it comes down to it. Honda Civics are great for going to the grocery store. And when my kid throws up all over the back seat, it's easy to clean. I don't worry about it. But if we're going to actually create race cars, we want Maseratis, we want Ferraris, we want those high-end vehicles. And that's what our system does, is we're giving you the tools to have that dashboard. And just like you're saying, there's up weeks, down weeks. Hey, you're down, time for the oil change. We need to rotate the tires. We actually need to make sure we've been doing a little too much on this one right here. We're overloading the IR strength. It's just like you're making all the left turns. Okay, well, now we need to rotate the tires so we're not wearing in a weird pattern, so we can keep that progression going forward. And that's the way the system's designed, is if you want to be serious about this, just like you said, even if it's men's league, you know, maybe your career's done, you know, you're kind of like Ryan, you're ready to jump into that men's league aspect of things. And you're like, I want to make sure that I'm the best men's league player that I can possibly be. We just want guys that are going to be serious about it. And that's what the system's for. It's not just for the major leaguer. It's for the guy that wants to squeeze the most out of every single competitive aspect they can. And you can play men's league and be competitive. You can play little league and be competitive. But that's the thing, is we're creating competitors because our data is designed to be competitive as well. So I don't know if we were going to go this way on the podcast or not on this discussion, but how are people competing with you since you're posting 240 pounds of strength? Is that causing people to go, hey, I'm gunning for you? Or are you trying to make sure that you're staying ahead of the pack over there?
I mean, it kind of creates a little bit of a competition, I would like to say in here. I don't know about other people because I don't really know much people that do it outside of this facility. Just from my personal one, I do not know a lot of people with that stuff. But in here, we have a lot of. I mean, we got 2 guys creeping up on me. We have a guy doing 200. I got another one that's like 230. And it creates a little bit of competition to keep going, a little bit of motivation, if you will, to keep increasing my strength up with that. So there's a little bit of gunning, and there's some trash talk in there, like, oh, well, I'm higher than you. Well, I'm higher than you now. Oh, let's go at it again. So I think that's a good environment to have, though.
It's I have to comment on this.
You beat me to it.
All right, I was gonna say there's a kid in here named Christopher Salamita, right? Solo is what we call him, right? So Solo had a 117 arm score, and he thought he had the record for like in here, with about I forgot, was he the 230 or 200?
No,
he was 200.
He was around 200.
He was around 200 now. He's a little bit skinnier than Nolan, but at the same time, a very strong kid, right? So, so he was talking all this trash in a group text that we have, right? And Nolan sends him a screenshot of the 126 arm score, and he goes, "Oh, never mind." It was so funny, but I absolutely love it. And then I will say really quick, just because I think it's hilarious. It's interesting, but it's true. So the bands that y'all have, it's like, yellow and green is novice, right? Then you have the red and purple as athletic. You have the blue and yellow as elite.
The
yes.
elite.
So yeah, exactly. So we had an assessment the other day, and the kid had scored into the novice group. And I said, as you get stronger, the app will actually recommend when you should go up to that athletic and then elite. And then at a certain point, you're going to be strong enough, and you're going to be Nolan strong, because he actually uses the orange and the red as his. Orange being the heavy bands, red being the lighter bands, because he can handle that load. And, I think the only other person here that does that is me. But I only started doing it because he started doing it, and I couldn't, I'm coaching him. I can't let him be stronger than me, right? So, but
yeah, I gave up on that a long time ago.
Another thing I think it does well is it keeps you away from injury. I don't think I talked on that like when I was injured before, and then it recovered me from an injury, but I haven't been injured since from when I started doing this stuff. I mean, my arm may get a little sore, but that happens when you're gaining velocity. But I haven't had an injury or any kind of like sharp pain, like bad pain, since we started.
Yeah, we originally obviously kind of put this whole thing together as injury reduction. Our goal is to get 0 injuries. 0. That's our goal. May not be attainable because there's just some things, like some people just aren't going to have the same ligament densities. Some people, there might be injuries where it's like, the kid fell, landed funky. There's things that are just going to be out of our control, but things that are controllable within our grasp, we want to get those injuries to 0. That's our goal. It's lofty, but we think we can do it, and we're doing pretty good. Right now, we have the one reported surgery case, and it was by a player who just stopped using the app altogether when he went to college because he was upset because his coaches were getting pissed off because he was doing something different. Stuff like that's going to happen. That's outside of our control. I can't say the player did the right or wrong thing because we don't know the full context, obviously. But that's our goal, is to get that down to 0. But with that, while we had it designed for injury reduction, injury prevention, one of the great outcomes of it, like side effects may vary, but velo increase. We're seeing guys when they increase on the scaption, go back and watch our podcast with Kaylee Shores. She's looking at players in that scaption plane, and she's seeing huge improvements in command on the day. She's looking at the arm primer and seeing performance measures. So really cool things to where it's like, yeah, we originally have all these metrics in here are designed for your health to get you away from being injured, because the number one most important stat on a baseball card, games played. If you're not playing, it doesn't matter. You can't contribute if you're not able to go to post and go on the field. So games played is number one. That was our main goal. But then, like we're seeing here with you, obviously, Nolan, huge velocity increases, and then you couple that with good coaching, good information, good feedback, and the ability to understand how to use just general metrics. And you're going to have a lot of really good outcomes with stuff. So, not everybody's seeing those same results. So if you don't mind kind of jumping in, talking a little bit on your guys' coaching process, what were some of those key things you started going, aside from the arm care aspect, what were those other things you were touching on? Because obviously you're building skill, not just strength.
Well, I have Kyle here. He's cool. I mean, he knows what I was talking about. The main thing is at least with me was I need to get better layback. So he would be teaching me how to get separation in my chest and all that kind of stuff.
So I know what you're saying. For
Yeah.
people listening, we have some younger listeners as well. What do you mean by layback and separate? Really paint the picture for them. Some of them are listening on Spotify and not watching the video.
Let's see.
Oh crap! There's no answers on that. They want to phone a friend.
Yeah, I'll phone a Kyle. Kyle's got that.
So essentially, Nolan was a big power lifter. When he was 16, he set the national squat record at was it 525? 525 pounds, all the way down, all the way up.
You barely got me. You barely beat me.
But so he was really, really strong, but big and tight, right? So we really had to work on his pec flexibility, being able to stretch his shoulders. So essentially, if you took your elbows and pulled them back behind your back as far as you could, essentially we wanted to create some separation there. So we could almost the goal is to touch your elbows behind your back. That's, the ideal goal, being ridiculously flexible. But essentially, that's going to get you into scaption, ready, really far back there. Then getting that layback. Now, layback is if you were to rotate your arm like a field goal. So you put your arm up like a field goal and then lay it back as far as rotating it backwards as far back as possible. He had maybe 15 degrees of layback starting out. He was that tight. So we did a ton of soft tissue work, a ton of deep tissue work, a lot of stem machine, cupping, scraping, stretches, as well paired with the arm care app. And then one other thing that I'm extremely meticulous on is form when you're doing my throwing drills. Because if you practice something wrong, you are just developing bad habits. That's how I see it. If you practice it perfectly, then you will do it the right way, but that's, so when we're first starting out, especially when you're new, I try to spend as much time as I can with those players because I want to make sure all their drills are done properly. Mm-hmm. If they're practicing it the wrong way, A, they could get hurt. B, they're developing bad movement patterns. And C, they're not going to see the increases in velocity or command that they could have in a shorter period of time. And I think one of the reasons that we have the success we do is because, not only with the arm care app, but because of that, extra effort to make sure that they're performing the drills the right way. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, one of the examples I like to use is it's just being meticulous.
Yes.
I always use the example of a compass. It depends on how far you want to go. If you're off by a degree on a compass and you're only going 30 yards, you're still in the area code. You're still generally hitting the mark of where you need to be. But if you're going 1 mile, 2 miles, 3 miles, and you're off by a degree, you might end up in a different zip code at the end of the day. So it's the same thing with player development. How long do you want to go in your career? Do you want to just I want to have a really good high school career. I'm more interested in not playing college baseball. Then you can get off a little bit on that compass. Is it college? You got to be a little tighter. Is it professional baseball? Is it the big leagues? Is it, I want to play till I'm 50? You need to be really tight on what you're doing. And that's where that meticulous nature comes in, and setting that standard at a younger age, like you guys obviously do with all the athletes you're working with, are again, why you guys are seeing the results you're seeing. It's a meticulous nature that some people probably look at it and they go, man, these guys it's a little much, but that's what it takes to be the best. If you want to be the best, you have to be meticulous.
And I just want to point out, I didn't have, I had tons of coaches. No one ever said hey, this is how you have to do it. But I know how bad I wanted it when I was, still playing, when I was in, high school, college, in the pros. So I know how hard I had to work to get to where I was. And I want to impart that, that work ethic, that focus, that desire on these other players. So that's why I'm so strict with it. That's why I'll get on them sometimes if they're, if they're right here and they do a drill and their arm is not at shoulder height, like down here, well, you're just going to be working on literally climbing the elbow, and that leads to injury. Like, so I get upset about that. You know what I mean? I'm going to be like, hey, no. We got to be here. Make sure we're here. Make sure we're boom right there. You know? So like it's not so much that I just like to, get on people. It's that like if you do it right, you could be that much better.
Mhm.
We're avoiding injury. We're doing things the right way, because I look at it like this. If I give you 125%, right? You are going to be that much better as long as you give me the 125% back, right? Now, me giving you my best and you getting the best out of it is going to give me return on that investment, you
Mhm.
know? So it's a win-win for everybody.
Yeah, another conversation I've had, especially with the younger athletes, and when I'm grabbing guys to work with, I try to be very selective because I don't have a facility. A lot of what I'm doing is kind of one-on-ones over long periods of time, and I tell them, look, it's not my job to lower myself to your standard. It's your job to raise yourself to my standard, and then once you've gotten there, it's my job to raise my standard again. So it's this continual chase game to keep raising the bar over and over again to force me to be more meticulous as a coach and to force them to be more meticulous as a player. And as they gain, I keep raising my standard. So that's a big thing is it's, a lot of people don't understand. It's like, well, why is he asking me to get my arm where it needs to be? Why is he asking me to create that separation? Why does he care how I do my foam rolling? While, yeah, it may seem like a small issue, those are the things that pay off dividends as you do them long term. So I just wanted to touch on that because I know you guys do a great job of being meticulous and I didn't want that to be glazed over.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, so I'll give it back to you guys now that I've rambled.
No,
RC, I've talked a ton. So you want to go?
yeah, sure. You talked about systems earlier, Jordan. Everything we do has to have a system. One, it's the gathering of information, qualitative and quantitative. Two, it's the education to the player behind it. Three, it's the goals that we have for them that they understand. And four, it's the how do we track it? How do we show the right patterns? How do we get them to understand what we're trying to achieve? So if you take those fundamental principles to everything we do, you get buy-in from the player, you get complete understanding, you get a rapport built because they say, oh, you just did this exact same thing with Nolan. Like I'm Chris Salamita, I've got no layback. Well, here's what we did with Nolan to get him there. Here's the pitchers in the big leagues that do it really well. Here's the drills that we do to fix it and why. And here's what you should be feeling along the way as checkpoints to make sure that you're doing it right. And so if
Now,
we can build those
on
out.
that, I want to make sure we drive this point home. One of the big issues that we see in player development across all 30 MLB orgs, and I have conversations with a lot of these guys, luckily in this position that I have, I get to contact a lot of people, is they go, well, and I want to make sure we clearly define the differences here, is what most of coaching will do is they'll go, so let me take a step back. If you're a decent coach, you're going to get 50% of your players better. 50% are either going to stay the same. Well, 25% will stay about the same. 25% are probably going to get worse. To say that everyone's going to get better is always going to be a long shot. If you're a good coach, maybe you're 80% and then you're like 10-10 or 15-5 on those others. And what makes you the good coach is you're willing to, just like you said, I took a note here. Everything needs a system to gather data, track progress, assess goals, and readjust. And that's the difference maker. Is a lot you're looking at things and going, well, this worked for Nolan because he had this, and that. So we know that these were the measurables that he started with. These increased. We saw this outcome. Where most of the time in coaching and professional baseball, you'll see guys get in there and they go, well, I did this drill package for this player back in 1997, and he got to the big leagues in 3 weeks. So they keep implementing that same drill package, but they don't know what those checklists are of why did that drill package work? What did we do? Why are we doing it? What was our outcome? So it's like we need to understand these things. Like, what are we evaluating? What systems are getting better? And that's why I like having you guys on, is you guys are very analytical minded. Well, it's kind of the same way that I think. It helps me grow. I take a ton of notes whenever we talk, obviously, but people need to really understand, how are you assessing your progress? I know I cut you off a little bit there, but if you don't mind, because you guys do some unique stuff, talk about what sets you apart in those systems, because your guys' systems work when it comes down to it. You're way better than that general coaching structure of 50% of players getting better. You're like 80, 90% of your guys are getting better. So if you don't mind diving in a little bit, how are some of those ways that you assess that information?
Absolutely. Great questions here. So the first one is, you said assess. And that's our number one thing you come in when you first do. We take you through foam rolling to understand it. Then you go through the arm care app, and we get total body, range of motion, stability. Kyle puts you on the table with your goniometer. Says, hey, here's where you're limited in X, Y, and Z positions. The arm care app tells me, hey, you've got a strong arm or not. And sometimes we've seen some really bad scores, and we've said, hey, even though you're a pitcher, we can't have you throw off the mound right now. Your arm's not there. And so that's come up on occasions. The way we use that is your strength to velocity ratio. For me, that's my favorite part of the whole entire thing. I really want the back and the front of the shoulder to be equal. But at the end of the day, at least if I have the strength velocity ratio above that one that we're looking for, I know that, hey, we're in a decent position. So from there, we go through a couple other KPI tracking metrics. I don't know if it's just broad jumps, vertical jumps. Do we do power outputs on med ball throws?
No, so what we did is we bought a Vitruvi. Do you know what that is, Jordan?
I do not. Go ahead and explain that, though.
So I don't even know if that's how you pronounce it, but we call it Vitruvi because that's what it looks like. But essentially, it measures how fast you move a bar speed.
Oh, yeah, I know what that is. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but we want to do something a little different with it. I want to connect it to like a knee strap and see how quickly they can lock out the lead leg, some stuff like that we're going to start implementing as well.
Mm-hmm.
That way, like how fast, boom, like that. So it's not just strength, but also the speed. You know what I mean? And that way we can incorporate like, hey, you're really strong, but you move really slow. So let's work on speeding up the arm, let's work on that lead leg lockout, to help kind of project the body over, get the arm really whipping out here, So there's a couple more things we can do, but right now, as far as that goes, it's a vertical, broad jump, and then a 40-yard dash, just as far as like actually, no, I'm sorry. We changed it to a 15-yard dash because we're really just worried about the explosiveness right at the gate. A lot of baseball throwing is done off that first initial push. We are looking into getting the force plates
And motion capture.
So those are the next two, like, purchases, investments, if you will, that we're looking into.
Mm-hmm.
And then go ahead.
Oh, sorry. And then from there, I think the most important part, once we determine that, hey, you're able to throw and you're in a healthy enough position to handle it, let's see what your movement patterns look like throwing. And then so from there, we take a couple fast speed videos, like Kyle said, to see if you move fast or slow, or if there's hitches in the arm. Again, when you're moving in slow motion, it's tougher to see those things, which is why we also capture normal speed. And then we slow our camera down to about, I think it's 1,000 frames per second or 96, something like that. And then from there, there's probably a 40 to 50 point checkpoint of saying, hey, here's all the things that you do properly in your movement patterns. Here's the things you don't. And so the first thing we explain to kids is, hey, there's a bunch of athletes out there that are really big and really strong. Well, if you go watch them throw the first pitch, you go watch, I forget who it was, a couple athletes, throw the ball 55. Even though they're way bigger and stronger than you, the reason is they don't move very efficiently and very effectively. And so Kyle does almost the best job in the country of sitting down and saying, hey, here's where your movement patterns are good. Here's where they're bad. Here's where they need to change. And then creating 2 or 3 different drills per movement pattern we're trying to change. And ultimately going back to the first video and where we want you to go, mm-hmm. and saying, hey, here's where your changes are being made. So that when we get a guy, who's made jumps like 5 miles an hour in a month, they completely understand where it came from, what they need to do differently, because ultimately the most important system for me is training autonomy. I'm not the one out there pitching. I can't be there for all your games. I can't be there for all your throwing sessions. So we need to be able to train them to do everything on their own. And so to do that, they have to be subject matter experts. So I know I went on a lot of rambles and took some notes, so I'll take a quick pause before I just get back on my soapbox here.
Yeah. Also, add on to that a little bit. To have the players know what's going on and why they are gaining velocity or why they're not throwing as hard is to know in the game, because we're not gonna. Well, Kyle and RC aren't gonna be there to yell out, hey, you're not locking on your lead leg. You got to be able to acknowledge that, because you know from the training, hey, when I don't lock in my lead leg, I pull off or I'm throwing it to the backstop or something like that. You got to be able to note and acknowledge that in game, so then you can fix it at that moment.
Mm-hmm. And that's again, you're pointing on that training autonomy. And I know we're running a little low on time here. And that's the big thing I want to point out too, is your goal as a coach is to not be the person the athlete's relying on. You want to build reliance into that athlete. And then always, as your relationship grows, you become a sounding board for that athlete to go, hey, here's what I'm thinking. Should I try this? Should I not try this? Hey, I saw this. What do you think of this? And it becomes this, it's a relationship of trust that they're more than okay to question, because you have that information, you have that to where you can sway that person on your side. And for me, what drives me nuts is when a coach goes, well, this kid's always questioning me. Good. Because that means he wants to know what you know. He's asking you questions. And if you're getting upset because the athlete's questioning, you're probably going, well, I don't have full understanding of the subject matter. So that's what it kind of separates you guys from me, is you're going, well, ask us a question, because if you don't understand, it's my job to sway you into understanding why we want you to do it this way. And maybe you're going to ask some really good questions that make us all go, let me dig into that and find out a better way to do this, or phrase this a better way, because it's communication and subject matter. And you guys, to me, you may be the gold standard of the way that it's going right now. So there's very few groups that are running the system the way that you guys are running it, combining that with a whole bunch of other aspects. And if you get a chance, obviously check your guys' stuff out. Go ahead, give us your social media information right now before we hop off here, because I want to make sure you guys know where to find you. Yeah.
So well, I'll just do that really quick. So like our Instagram is _backyard_baseball_lab. The Backyard Baseball Lab, but with the underscores. And as far as Facebook, it's literally just like facebook.com/the Backyard Baseball Lab. And Twitter is the BB Lab RVA. So the Backyard Baseball Lab, Richmond, Virginia, the BB Lab RVA.
And what if they want to just shoot you an email directly? What's the best way to get a hold of you guys?
Yeah, so it's Kyle@backyardbaseballlab.com. It's really long, but really simple. It's just Kyle@backyardbaseballlab.com. And I wanted to say, like, I think that's another reason we have success. Something you had said is like, not just showing them drills to do. I don't just show them drills to do. I teach them the drill. I say, hey, this is the drill, step by step. This is why you do it. You know what I mean? This is what it's fixing. This is where you need to get to, right? So like if my arm is like here and then we need it out there just a little bit, right? And then I explain why we want it out there. And then the athlete's like, oh, okay, that makes sense, right? And then you do have those athletes that are like, well, why am I doing this? And I was like, well, because you have to run sprints too. And that's why we run sprints. Just those ones are the ones that like I don't like too much. It's like, well, why do we have to run sprints? Well, hey man, we've got to be athletic. We're, just because we stand in a position doesn't mean that we can't be in shape too. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So, but no, I agree with everything you're saying on that front. And the ones that ask questions, I truly believe are the ones that get the most out of it, because they don't want to just do drills. They want to understand it. And when my favorite thing is when I have an athlete go like, boom, does it wrong. Say, oh, I did this again. And I'm like, yes, you did.
They understand the why.
You felt it. Yes, you felt it. Now you know what it feels like to do it wrong. So let's not do it like that again. You know, and a great quote. I love this quote. I love it so much, right? It says, a good player will practice something till he gets it right. A great player will practice something till he can't get it wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that so much because I'll have guys who do it right one time, like, oh, sweet. All right. Then they want to go to the next drill. And I'm like, no, no, no. Now let's do it like that until you can't not do it like that. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So,
yeah, exactly. So
that's
real
my-
quick before we wrap it up, if you guys have questions, email Kyle@backyardbaseballlab.com. If you got questions for us or something you want us to cover on the podcast, obviously email me, Jordan@armcare.com. We're more than happy to go into that stuff, but as for now, we will probably have these guys back on again, going over more success stories because they're killing it. So again, if you don't know who they are, go check out those previous ones, and we will see you guys later.
Good. Thanks.